Wanted to talk a little bit about all this rain, and I know we got a lot of guys listening to us that do lawn applications, and you know how hard we work on those yards all year long, right? And especially in the spring, as we're coming out in the winter of the winter, and we're trying to keep the weeds under control, and we're getting our pre-emergence down, our broadleaf weed control down, and everything that we're trying to position the yards and lawns. I know yards. I'm not supposed to call them yards. Sorry about that, guys. Positioning the lawns to be, the best they can be, right? And then, we act like it's something new, though. But, every year it seems that we run into this rainy, cloudy, cold period or cooler period, and where we're getting too much rain, not enough sunlight, nighttime temperatures above 70 degrees. And all of a sudden we walk out one day and there it is. Red threads all over the place, or, whatever disease or fungus, there it is, and it's like, oh, God. And there's really, and not everybody's going to put a preventative fungicide down, right? Or, they're just not going to spend the money on it. So what do? Do you try to educate your customers a little bit? I know that's what we try to do. We send out a couple emails ahead of the problem and, tell people, hey, be looking for this. You're probably going to see this in your yard. But we work so hard to get their yards in great shape, and then we get them in really good shape and they're looking good. And then I know this morning when I walked out and looked at my front yard, man, it looked like it had measles, so you're thinking, I know, I can hear what you're thinking, Wayne, why didn't you spray your yard? Well, I kind of treat my yard like a customer's yard. I don't overdo it on my yard. I do enough, but that way I can kind of keep track of, from a rain standpoint, a cool standpoint, a mowing height standpoint, and, that whole thing. I can kind of watch my yard and see where it's going and see what problems are my customers may be having. I don't want to give myself an unfair advantage. I know it sounds crazy, but I still like to use my yard, I guess is the best way of saying it, as my test yard. Hey, I'm going to do my yard like most of my customers, what I expect my customers to do. And if I see it in my yard, they're probably seeing it in their yard. So I'm not saying that's the way you got to do it, but, we do know that, hey, we get this much rainy weather, and it's not that it's raining constantly, but, grass is staying wet. We're not getting the grass blade dried out. We're not getting the airflow. We're not getting the sunlight. Boom, here we go. We got a problem. Houston, we got a problem. So what are you doing? I just suggest that you try to be a little more proactive with your customers. And, there's different schools of thought on that too. I hear guys all the time say, man, I'm just not even going to bring it up. I don't want them looking for it, right? That's the way I used to be. I used to think, well, out of sight, out of mind. But it's really not out of sight, out of mind in that situation. They're seeing it. And but, I found we get less calls by informing our customers that, hey, if you see this, don't panic. We need an environmental change. But certainly if you got an irrigation system, turn your daggone irrigation system off. You don't need it right now. And irrigation systems now are so easy to control, not just with on and off, but rain sensors and everything else, that there's no reason they should just be turned on or turned off. But sometimes, and I don't know, I know sometimes that takes you outside your comfort zone, but the only reason it's outside your comfort zone is because you don't know what you don't know about educating your customer on their irrigation system. I'm not an irrigation specialist by any stretch of the imagination, but what I know enough about it that say, hey, here's what you need to do, and you need to reset your controller, and if not, we'll help you. Because at the end of the day, to them, it's running. How many times haven't you been running down the street and you see irrigation running and it's raining? Or you're thinking, my God, why is that irrigation system running? Kind of goes like that when I joke about it and I say I was pointing people out one day, act like you're pointing to somebody. And you got, you're pointing to somebody and you got your index fingers pointing at them, but you got three fingers pointing back at you. Are you trying to educate your customers? Because, and sometimes that can be an exercise that's not going to work too. I mean, heck, that happens too. You know, you can tell somebody something 1,000 times, but you know, it doesn't matter until it matters. And then when their yard's loaded up with red thread or something, you know, they're like, oh God, I should have listened. Or, well, I remember getting something, but I didn't think it really applied to me in my yard. Does any of that sound familiar? I don't think it applied to me. But those are all problems, and those problems are going to get a little bigger this week for you guys that are experiencing the rain this week that we're going to have here in Kentucky. And then, like I said, I know it's not just a Kentucky issue. It's from what I'm seeing on the weather maps and whatnot, it's affecting quite a bit of the country. So it's going to be a problem for all of us. And you know, the next thing we'll be moaning about though is, right? What's that? That's right. You're exactly right. It's going to be no rain, and then we're going to be talking about here the problems that brings along. So, no win situation. We just stay. From a profit standpoint, yeah, it's great to sell some fungicides to people, but you know, on the other side of it is, if we can just help them understand that, hey, it's probably not going to tear your lawn up. It's not going to wipe your lawn out. You know, if you're mowing your own lawn, you know, what's one thing we can tell our customers? Bag your clippings. You know, if you got a disease or fungus problem, bag your clippings. It's not something we recommend all the time, but it certainly does help. If you're not going to, if you're not going to go to the expense of treating it with a fungicide, you know, and even if you do, you know, we try to talk them into, you know, hey, bag your clippings just a few times. 99% of the time, this goes back to that 1 or 2% thing, right? Occasionally we want you to do something that we're not going to tell you to do most of the time. But, hey, we're going to try to slow this problem down a little bit, and let's bag your clippings for a couple weeks. Now that, of course, for you guys that are mowing contractors like we are, that's the last thing we want to hear, isn't it? Bag the clippings. Oh, my God. You guys have been mowing long enough. Y'all remember we used to bag everything back in the day, right? It was like, oh, my God, all this time and effort and expense. But we've kind of weaned ourselves from that really, really good. Not just Wayne's Lawn Service, but I think as an industry, we've weaned ourselves pretty well from bagging a lot of locations. But it's like everything. There's a time and a place. There's a time and a place for all of it. So, but be sure to notify your clients about the irrigation. And we found it takes a whole lot of pain away